Welcome to episode 460 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Meyers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I am interviewing actor turned writer director Noah Segan. He just completed a vampire road movie called Blood Relatives. So we talk about that, how it all came together for him. And he's been working consistently as an actor for many years now. So we talk about that transition as well, going from actor to writer director. So stay tuned for that interview. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking or sharing it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mention in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcast, and then just look for episode number 460. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks, along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide. I'll teach you how to write a professional logline and career letter and how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. Really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. So now let's get into the main segment. Today I am interviewing writer, director, and actor Noah Segan. Here is the interview. Welcome, Noah, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So to start out, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up and how did you get interested in the entertainment business?
Well, I grew up in New York City, fifth generation New Yorker, very artistic family, but working artists. My grandfather was a photographer. My mother's a painter and a cartoonist, and I have an aunt who works in the fashion business. But everybody just, as I said, sort of working class, really had to kind of go every day into the office, even if that office was a fun studio or fun assignment. And so, I always knew that I loved movies and sets. As a kid, I did some commercials and things like that, but it was really sort of an after school kind of hobby. It wasn't taken seriously. And it wasn't until I was about 19, 20 that I decided I really wanted to work full time as a career in the movie business. And at the time I wanted to be a cameraman. So I started working for a friend of the family who was a cinematographer. And I did that for a few years until I very circuitously met Rian Johnson, who had been working for a few years to get Brick made. And we became buddies and discussed, what it would look like if I acted in Brick. I gave him an audition. We talked, and he hired me. And ever since then, my day job has been an actor.
That's fascinating. Yes. So it is. It's that joke from my dinner with Andre. Oh, I couldn't sell my script, so I became an actor. And that's a great story, because I would have thought intuitively you would have thought it was the opposite. You get into acting, but it sounds like you were pursuing to be behind the camera from the start.
I just wanted to be on sets, I just wanted to work, on movies and shows. And I sort of, I don't know that as a kid, or at least even as, a teenager or somebody in my early 20s, I really saw a big difference between what people were doing in front of the camera and what people were doing behind the camera. It all just sort of seemed like the environment I wanted to be in.
Now, I know, just talk a little bit about that transition. So you've got a good resume now as an actor. So how did you start to sort of cross those bridges? Do you have some producer friends? You say, hey, I got this script. Have you been writing scripts? Let's talk about that transition a little bit. I know there's a lot of people that are listening to this. They want to be screenwriters. They're working in a different field. Obviously, being an actor, you've got a lot of good contacts in the industry, but just talk about that transition. How, as an actor, do you get producers and just to take you seriously as a writer director?
Well, I think the first thing that I did was write a lot of bad material that I did not feel comfortable sharing with anyone. I did the thing that everybody should do, which is that I failed, and I kind of knew that I was failing as I was doing it. And I would go off and I would act, and I would take my gigs, and then I would work on stories and I would work on scripts, and very few things ever came to the fruition of actually being a screenplay, let alone anything being something that I felt comfortable showing, even to the people who I worked with, who I also counted as close friends, until very recently. And when I finally felt like I had cracked the code and had something that I was excited about, that felt like it was representative of the story that was in my heart and did sort of check the boxes, and I could also compare it to the great scripts that I had read, whether they were just scripts that I had read for movies that I loved or scripts that I had read for movies that I had worked on. When I kind of put all those things into the columns and they lined up, then I felt comfortable sharing them with my colleagues and my friends. And of course, a lot of great notes came out of that. I was very lucky that, my partner, my wife, is one of the best writers in the world. I was able to get some great notes from her, and my close friend Ryan, of course, who is a great writer. But that's very different from the process of actually going out and trying to make it. And that process was very circuitous. It absolutely started with having a friendship and a relationship with Sam Zimmerman at Shudder, which is part of AMC, the studio that made the film. But even that, wasn't a slam dunk, let's go make the movie. I had met Lial Naeem through other colleagues. He produced The Endless for Aaron Moorhead and Dustin Benson. And he had been out there trying to, secure financing and find partners. And then I met Josh Rubin, who had sort of made a movie called Scare Me that was a bit of a proof of concept for a movie like mine. He acted in it, wrote it, directed it, made it on a low budget. It also premiered on Shudder. And it was really sort of combining all of those relationships, the relationship between Josh, who had sort of done the thing that was similar to what I was trying to do, Lial, who had produced movies at this budget level, Sam, who was an executive at a studio that could finance it, who I had a personal relationship with. We could speak like friends. Combining all of those things is what eventually led to financing the film.
Gotcha. So, and usually we talk about that sort of at the end, but that's interesting to hear at the beginning of the interview. So just let's take a step back and just give us sort of a pitch or log line. What is Blood Relatives all about? Just so people have some sort of context as we talk through this.
Blood Relatives is a story about a loner vampire crisscrossing the country in his 1969 Barracuda fastback, thinking that he is a very cool dude, until a teenage kid shows up and says, "You're my dad." And the two of them end up on a journey to figure out how to be a family while also being vampires.
So where did this idea come from? And I'm curious, especially someone like yourself, you have so many contacts in the industry, well-regarded writers, vampire movies, it's well-worn territory at this point. How can you make an original movie? And did you get any pushback as you started to tell people about this idea that, do we need another vampire movie? But how do you do something that's well-tread and make it original?
I don't know. I'll let you be the judge of that, okay, audience. But I will say that as much as I love monster movies and as much as I love vampire movies and Lord knows I've seen a lot of them and I've stolen from the best as well as everyone should. I really wanted to make a movie about what it felt like to become a dad. And to sort of talk about the transition that I went through, thinking that I was one way and then realizing that my life was a completely different way. And how that felt, right? It didn't feel, sometimes it felt scary. Sometimes it felt like a horror movie. Sometimes it felt funny and it felt like a comedy of errors, and just sort of putting all of those things together and realizing that the vampire was going to be very helpful in telling that story, and that the vampire was something that I understood as a fan, as someone who just studies that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
it felt like that was the mechanism that I could use. So I hope that if the film does feel fresh,
Mm-hmm.
it only feels fresh um, because it's just my experience. It's
Mm-hmm.
and not because it's another vampire movie.
Yeah, yeah. And so you didn't get any of those sorts of notes from Shudder or any of these places. I mean, they must get a million vampire scripts, submitted to them. But there was no pushback from any of the industry contacts.
Not in my case. No,
Hmm.
not in my case. I didn't feel like there was criticism of the vampire aspect.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It felt very supportive. It felt like, if anything, I got a little bit of confidence from the fact that I had really tried to subvert the
Mm-hmm.
vampire stuff.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So let's just talk quickly about your writing process. What does your writing process look like? Do you write in the morning? Do you write at night? Do you have a home office? Do you go to Starbucks? Just what does your sort of writing process look like?
It looks like this. It looks like my garage,
Okay.
and I write next to my car. It's the garage, and the home office is generally where I write. But most of my process is devoted to the outline stage. I tend not to go deep into like a treatment. I
Mm-hmm.
tend to keep it as an outline, lot of bullet points, to just sort of get me to a place where I feel like I can translate a story, a beginning, middle, end, whatever structure I decide on. In the case of Blood Relatives, it's actually 5 acts. It's not 3, but that's pretentious to say. But really, just to get to a point where I have enough bullet points where I can take them and put them into my writing program as scene headings. And to me, that's sort of the magic moment where I can say, I've got scene headings and I've got places and times where things are happening. That's when I feel like I'm getting enough confidence to actually fill in the blanks and create the
Mm-hmm.
story. So things like dialogue are really, really, really far at the end of the process. For me, it really is about creating what feels like a map from beginning to end, and having that outline that's usually the equivalent of 2 or 3 pages translate into what I hope are at least 60 or 70 or 80 scene headings that can be expanded on.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious. Your process sounds very structured, very organized, and frankly, that's the way I've always written too. Just in a very sort of one step at a time, inching myself closer to the final line. How did you come up with this process? How did you arrive at this very organized, sort of structured process in writing?
Mostly it was talking to other writers, and some of whom are my friends. I have friends who spend months writing in notebooks, doing God knows what in those notebooks,
Mm-hmm.
which they will never show to anyone.
Uh-huh.
And then they say, okay, I'm done. And they've got a stack of little notebooks that's a foot high. And then 3 weeks later, they've got the best screenplay you've ever read in your life. And
Mm-hmm.
you go, well, I guess all of it, you did all that in those notebooks? And they said, no, I just sort of doodled for a while till I figured it out. And you go, okay, I guess that's one way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But what I took from that, which is not my process, is that there is this incredibly important outline process. There is this simmering of the soup that sort of has to happen in order to get to a place where you feel confident that you can write a script. At least in my case, I can't sit down and write, interior Chinese food restaurant and
Mm-hmm.
then keep going. And so once I sort of discovered that as part of other people's writing processes, it gave me the confidence to create a structure for myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perfect. What's the biggest lesson you've learned from doing this project? The writing, getting it produced, the whole process. Just, do you have one lesson that you could share with us?
The biggest lesson, especially from the writing and sort of script, the development and writing process, is simply that this didn't mean anything to me until it was personal. And I'm like every writer, I have a shoebox full of ideas that all sound great, and they all are really exciting, and they sometimes sound like movies I want to see, but not all of them feel personal. Not all of them feel like I'm able to, I don't know, maybe make something that I would want to see myself. Or see myself in and connect with someone on. So I think, the thing that made this kind of magical and frankly, the thing that hopefully helped it come to fruition was really never forgetting that there are real people who are going to be reading this. There are real people who are going to be watching this. This isn't just academic. I can sit and do my math all day long, and that's very important. But at the end of the day, if you're not trying to connect with another person over your screenplay or your movie at the finish line, I don't know if it's tenable.
Yeah, for sure. That's excellent advice. How can people see Blood Relatives? Do you know what the release schedule is going to be like?
Yes. So we premiere on Shudder on November 22nd, a couple days before Thanksgiving. As a, maybe a little left to center family film for you guys to enjoy.
Perfect. Well, no, I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me today. Good luck with this film and good luck with all your future films as well.
Thank you, Ashley. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, thank you. We'll talk to you later.
Take care.
Bye.
Yep.
SYS's From Concept to Completion screenwriting course is now available. Just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/screenwriting course. It will take you through every part of writing a screenplay, coming up with a concept, outlining, writing the opening pages, the first act, second act, third act, and then rewriting. And then there's even a module at the end on marketing your screenplay once it's polished and ready to be sent out. We're offering this course in 2 different versions. The first version, you get the course, plus you get 3 analyses from an SYS reader. You'll get 1 analysis on your outline, and then you'll get 2 analyses on your first draft of your screenplay. This is just our introductory price. You're getting 3 full analyses, which is actually the same price as our 3-pack analysis bundle. So you're essentially getting the course for free when you buy the 3 analyses that come with it. And to be clear, you're getting our full analysis with this package. The other version doesn't have the analysis, so you'll have to find some friends or colleagues who will do the feedback portion of the course with you. I'm letting SYS Select members do this version of the course for free. So if you're a member of SYS Select, you already have access to it. You also might consider that as an option. If you join SYS Select, you will get the course as part of that membership too. A big piece of this course is accountability. Once you start the course, you'll get an email every Sunday with that week's assignment. And if you don't complete it, we'll follow up with another reminder the next week. It's easy to pause the course if you need to take some time off, but as long as you're enrolled, you'll continue to get reminders for each section until it's completed. The objective of the course is to get you through it in 6 months so that you have a completed, polished screenplay ready to be sent out. So if you have an idea for a screenplay and you're having a hard time getting it done, this course might be exactly what you need. If this sounds like something you'd like to learn more about, just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/screenwriting course. It's all one word, all lowercase. I will, of course, link to the course in the show notes, and I will put a link to the course on the homepage up in the right-hand sidebar. On the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing director Scooter Corky. He just did a horror film called The Friendship Game starring Peyton List. We talk about this project and how it all came together for him. It's a teen horror film, so we talk a little bit about casting and then working with younger actors, which is something screenwriters need to understand. Working with young actors, casting young actors, it does present a number of challenges. So it's something that screenwriters should at least in some part understand. So keep an eye out for that episode next week. That's the show. Thank you for listening.